out there in the market today. And so we think about regulatory risk probably more than compliance. And I think a sub element of that is reimbursement, right? If you're taking a new product to market, I need to know how it's going to be, who's going to pay for it, how it's going to be reimbursed potentially, and what the risk is that we won't get reimbursement. And so that falls under that regulatory umbrella. And so I think if you're going to invest in the space, if you're going to build product in the space, it has to be top of mind and understanding the various risks that come with the regulatory environment.
What about a potential red flag? So, what would you consider from a diligence standpoint, something that says either this isn't the right company for me, or this isn't the right company today, and they need to do more of X? Mike?
Yeah, it's a good question, but a tough one. You kind of know it when you see it. I think the way to de-risk, if you're thinking about building a product and then going to raise venture capital, is get an early set of users or early set of customers, even if they're pilot or on a discounted pricing model or free if it's more of a direct-to-consumer model. But to one of Max's points earlier, it's very important to understand how the user is going to react and engage with your product. And if you can show early evidence that engagement is high, things like net promoter score, a relative net promoter score are very high, that'll give me confidence that I can extrapolate that across a larger population. We can roll this out across more consumers or get it into the hands of more providers, et cetera. So some of those early data points on usability, user experience, even ROI to a degree are important. And if you don't have those, then that's a red flag, right? That someone, for some reason, is not engaging or embracing these products.
Max?
Yeah, if unsurprisingly, a lot of the red flags are the opposites of what we said we look for. One of the things that Mike mentioned, which was really big, is how important this product is in the workflow, in how they're able to provide care. If I'm interviewing customers and they say, this is kind of it's nice, it provides a little cherry on top, but like if it went away, it wouldn't be the worst thing. That's a big red flag. That's a fair weather product, and those things can be nice and important, but if it's not crucial to the care they're providing and it's not providing that big of a difference, that's a red flag. Similarly, a company that can't tell me what the ROI is a big one. Again, a lot of companies are working toward making products that are making life better for whether it's the older adults, the individuals, whoever. But if they can't put it in terms of what the ROI is for the organization, that's a big red flag, because it means they're not really thinking about selling it. They're thinking more of the good to humanity, which is important, but you have to marry that with the business model in order to have a successful company.
Yeah, no, that's great. Let's pivot a little bit here to COVID, the pandemic. So clearly large impact on how we how our lives are running, how our business is running, how care is taking place in the market. What are your observations on the impact that the pandemic has had on this space from a emerging technology standpoint? And Max, let's start with you on that.
Sure. Again, I'm going to echo what I said in the beginning and what Mike clearly saw before all of us, is that care is moving into the home, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. It really, whether it was necessary or not, is a topic of debate that I have, but COVID really pushed us all over the hump into realizing that it is possible, and it really got a lot of skeptics to convince that this is the way that it can be done. It can be done as well, if not better. I really think that is a huge one. And combine that with being able to use that to reach people that wouldn't have access to specialties because of their geographic location is also a huge one. People that may only have access to a GP now can access a cardiologist, a pulmonologist, all these specialties to get care that they really wouldn't be able to get any other way. And now, because of the deregulation, now they can get that. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, I agree. I think certainly the access to care we've talked about, and I think COVID because it's forced people to use technology, to use telehealth. It's going to catalyze more in the development of more in-home technology. And so it's going to be an opportunity for these young products to find early users, to find caregivers that are looking for solutions for mom and dad, because there's a strong aversion to moving into a facility. Right? If you can find a way for me to be safe and in my home, we are going to do that first, and we are going to go and find the suite of products and services to bring into the home to help everyone feel comfortable with that environment. So I think we'll see more dollars flowing in. We'll see more dollars flowing into products themselves. In the past, it's been a mix of services. Or services probably as the driver, but I think we'll see more of those hard goods being adopted in the home, probably starting with the family and over time with reimbursement attached to them.
Yeah.
Did you see any? Oh, I'm sorry, Max.
No. I was just going to say, on that, a lot more products, a lot more opportunity in the home, again, because the skeptics have kind of been shown that this is possible. Kind of the barrier has been broken, and now people are like, oh, this works. What else, can I do to help me stay in my home, help make sure my parents, grandparents are okay? So a lot of those hard goods, soft goods, a lot more technology is going to be able to get into people's homes because they are more willing to bring it in now.
Yeah. Did you see any, or have you seen any products that perhaps sort of fell off the playing field as a result of the pandemic, or is it more of an emphasis on other types of products having, greater attraction, greater use, but not really pushing anything, out of the market?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure I can think of a category or a product that's fallen off. It's obviously been challenging to sell into assisted living facilities over the last year and a half of that, as they've been dealing with this fire. It's even been challenging selling into certain specialties if you're selling to the provider, because their attention has been so much on dealing with COVID or not being able to see patients in person because of COVID, and therefore unlikely to test or adopt new products until you get back into the regular flow of their business, of their group. So that's been maybe the harder part. I think the other element that's tricky as an investor is if something's really taken off during COVID, how much of that was temporary versus permanent. And so maybe over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll get a better flavor for that. But that's the other side of the coin, is an investor is the false positive or the temporary positive driven by the pandemic.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I think Mike covered it perfectly.
Perfect. Well, last question for you. What advice, would you give to that startup or early stage company who's in this space but wants to attract, venture capital funding, the eye of the investor? So Max, let's start with you.
Sure. Going back to what Mike said earlier, get a few customers, get people that are using it. It can be at reduced rates. It could be at a free rate. That's okay too in the very beginning, so that you're getting that feedback. And so that venture capitalists, when we do our due diligence, can talk to those people who are using it on a daily basis, that they can tell us the real value. Because it's not that we don't trust you when you say, all the things that you're doing and making life better, but hearing it from the users, the actual customer who is paying or going to be paying, is so much more powerful. That's a huge one. And then, the other thing, as I mentioned before, with those multiple stakeholders, make sure that you are talking with and working with all of the stakeholders. You're not leaving anyone out, because it has to work for everyone. It has to work for, the frontline nurse, has to work for the family caregiver, has to work for the older adult themselves, for the facility, whoever is in that cycle, whoever needs to be a part of it, even if it's just, using the caregiver to introduce technology to help them get comfortable with it. It still needs to be something that they want to do, because if they don't see benefit to it, they're not going to do it, no matter how good it might be for the facility or the individual. So really focusing on those things, I think, is important.
It's great advice. Great advice, Mike.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The customer and user discovery should be prioritized. That is critical. Do that first. Do more of it than you probably anticipate you need. Secondarily, understand potential pricing, willingness to pay, how they'd like to see it priced, the ultimate consumer, and just spend your time on that area before you go start coding. There's not surprisingly, you've got millennials and Gen Z that are building products for boomers, and naturally there's going to be a disconnect there. So until you have a great sense for your end user, I wouldn't spend the time building the product yet.
That's great. Great advice. Well, thank you both very much for your time and your participation has been super helpful. We really appreciate it.